I'm Amelia Smith, 27, and my life changed in 24 hours flat. The universe has a twisted sense of humor. The exact day my parents decided I was a failure and kicked me out with nothing but a suitcase was the very same day my lottery ticket hit for millions. They thought they were teaching me a lesson about responsibility. Instead, they taught me that sometimes losing everything is the only way to find what truly matters. Before I tell you how I went from homeless to millionaire overnight, let me know where you're watching from in the comments below. Hit that like button and subscribe if you've ever had to reinvent yourself when life pulled the rug out from under you. Trust me, you'll want to hear what happened next. Growing up in Meadowbrook, I was always the odd one out in my family. My father, Frank Anderson, was an accountant who believed success came in one flavor, a prestigious degree followed by a stable corporate job with benefits. My mother, Helen, wasn't much different. As a hospital administrator, she valued structure, predictability, and what she called practical choices. Then there was me, dreaming of creating beautiful things with my hands. From the time I was 12, I spent hours crafting jewelry from whatever materials I could find. Old buttons from Grandma Margaret's sewing box, smooth stones from the creek behind our house, broken necklaces from thrift stores. My parents tolerated this as a nice hobby, but made it clear they expected me to grow out of it and pursue something sensible. Only my grandmother, Margaret, truly understood me. While my parents pushed me toward business school, Grandma would slip me art books and say things like, "The world needs more beauty, Caitlin." Never apologized for creating it, she displayed my amateur creations, proudly wearing my mismatched earrings to church and telling everyone who complimented them, "My granddaughter made these. She's going to be famous someday." When I turned 21, Grandma Margaret gave me an antique jewelry box filled with tools and stones she'd collected over the years. "Your grandfather gave me this on our wedding day," she told me. "I've been saving it for someone who would truly appreciate it." That gift meant more to me than my college diploma. After graduation, I took a job at a financial firm to please my parents. For 3 years, I withered at that desk, designing jewelry sketches on lunch breaks and staying up late to create pieces I sold at local craft fairs on weekends. My online shop slowly gained a following, but not enough to support me fully. Every Friday, Grandma Margaret and I had a ritual. We'd meet for coffee at Bellamy's Cafe, and she'd insist on buying a lottery ticket. "One for me, one for you," she'd say with a wink. "Your dreams need a little magic sometimes." I'd roll my eyes, but play along. It was our thing. When she passed away last year, I was devastated. At the reading of her will, I received her lottery number book. Inside the cover, she'd written, "Keep playing, my darling. These numbers have meaning. And remember, the greatest lottery in life is having the courage to be yourself." I continued our Friday ritual alone, using her special number combinations. It felt like keeping a part of her alive. Meanwhile, tension at home grew unbearable. Despite having moved back with my parents to save money after college, I was 28 now, and their patience with my jewelry phase had worn threadbare. Each dinner became a battlefield. "When are you going to apply for that management position Richard mentioned?" Mum would ask, referring to her colleague's son who worked at a prestigious marketing firm. "The benefits package alone is worth considering," Dad would add, as if I hadn't heard this speech weekly for months. I tried to explain how my online sales were increasing, how a small boutique in the city had started carrying my pieces, but their eyes would glaze over. To them, success couldn't be measured in Instagram followers or 5-star reviews. 2 weeks before everything fell apart, I found an apartment listing online. Nothing fancy, just a small studio above the bookstore downtown, but it would be mine. The rent was steep, but if I kept my day job a few more months while growing my business, I could make it work. I scheduled a viewing, dreaming of a space where I could spread out my tools without judgment, create without criticism. Hope flickered inside me. Grandma Margaret's voice seemed to whisper, "It's time, Caitlin. Spread your wings." I believed, perhaps naively, that my parents would eventually come around once they saw me succeeding on my own terms. I imagined inviting them to my first real jewelry show, watching pride replace disappointment in their eyes. The universe had other plans entirely. The argument that changed everything erupted on a Tuesday evening. I'd finally gathered the courage to announce my decision to quit my stable job at Preston Financial to pursue my jewelry business full-time. I'd rehearsed my speech all day, preparing answers for every objection I anticipated. What I hadn't prepared for was the sheer intensity of their reaction. "You're throwing away a perfectly good career for a hobby." Dad's face flushed crimson as he set down his fork with such force that the plates rattled. "This isn't just disappointing, Caitlin. It's irresponsible." Mom's approach was subtler, but no less cutting. "Sweetheart, I understand wanting to follow your passion, but people with real artistic talent get discovered early. They don't need to quit their jobs and burden their families." Her words sliced through me with surgical precision. I tried explaining my business plan, the growing sales figures, the boutique partnerships I was developing, but each point I made was swatted away like an annoying insect. $300 in sales last month isn't a business, it's a garage sale, Dad scoffed. That's when I noticed the printout sitting on the counter behind him. It was my sales report, which I kept in a folder in my desk drawer. They'd been going through my things. "You went through my private documents?" I asked, my voice rising with indignation. Mom had the decency to look slightly embarrassed, but Dad doubled down. "When you live under our roof, your business is our business. And speaking of business, that little diary of yours doesn't inspire confidence either." My heart dropped. My diary, the one where I'd poured out my dreams, my fears, my most private thoughts. "You read my diary." The betrayal felt physical, like a punch to the stomach. "We needed to understand what's going on with you," Mom said defensively. "You've been secretive, staying up all hours working on those trinkets." "They're not trinkets," I said, fighting back tears. "And I'm not a child whose privacy you can invade whenever you feel like it." Dad's ultimatum came next, delivered with the cold finality of a judge passing sentence. "Either you keep your job at Preston and treat this jewelry nonsense like the hobby it is, or you need to find somewhere else to live. We won't support this fantasy." My brother, Timothy, who'd been silently eating his potatoes throughout this exchange, finally spoke up. "Maybe Dad's right, Kate. You've always been different, but sometimes different isn't practical." His betrayal stung almost as much as my parents'. Growing up, he'd been my ally in this house of rigid expectations. Now he was one of them. I tried one last approach, appealing to their own values. "You always taught me to be self-sufficient, to work hard for what I want." "That's exactly what I'm doing. Why can't you see that? Self-sufficiency means paying your own rent, not living here while you play artist," Dad replied flatly. Mom's face softened momentarily. "We just want what's best for you, Caitlin." "No," I said quietly. "You want what's easiest for you to understand." That was apparently the last straw. Dad stood up, pointing toward the stairs. "Pack your things. I want you out by morning." I spent the next 4 hours in my childhood bedroom, tears streaming down my face as I tried to fit my life into one suitcase. The irony wasn't lost on me that the suitcase itself was a gift from Grandma Margaret for my 25th birthday. "For adventures," she'd said when I unwrapped it. Some adventure this was turning out to be. I had to make impossible choices. Which clothes were practical? Which jewelry supplies were essential? What mementos could I not bear to leave behind? Each item I placed in the suitcase felt like admitting defeat, while each one I left behind felt like abandoning a piece of myself. As midnight approached, I remembered it was Tuesday, the night they announced the lottery numbers. Grandma and I always checked them together. Now I did it alone, a small ritual of connection to her memory. I pulled out my phone to check my ticket on the lottery app, but was greeted with a maintenance notification: "System updates in progress. Please check back in 6 to 8 hours." Even this small comfort was denied me tonight. I closed the app, set my alarm, and cried myself to sleep beside a half-packed suitcase in the room that would no longer be mine come morning. The next morning brought steady rain, as if the sky itself understood my mood. Dad stood at the front door, arms crossed, watching as I struggled down the stairs with my overstuffed suitcase. Mom hovered in the kitchen doorway, her expression a complicated mix of worrying and resolve. Neither offered to help. Your phone will stay on our family plan until the end of the month, Dad informed me, his tone all business. After that, you're on your own. Richard's son still says he could get you that interview, Mum added, making one last attempt to pull me back into their version of a sensible life. I said nothing, just nodded and stepped toward the door. I had my wallet with exactly $342, my driver's license, and a nearly maxed out credit card. My car technically belonged to my parents, as they'd helped with the down payment and kept the title. I knew better than to ask if I could take it. This is for your own good, Caitlin, Dad said as he physically guided me toward the porch, his hand firm on my shoulder. Sometimes people need a push to grow up. The door closed behind me with a definitive click of the lock. Just like that, I was homeless. The rain immediately began soaking through my light jacket. I pulled out my phone with trembling fingers and called Amber, my best friend since high school. Kate, what's wrong? You sound terrible, her voice came through, muffled by what sounded like airport announcements. My parents kicked me out. I need a place to stay, I said, struggling to keep my voice steady. Oh my God, I'm so sorry. I'm at the airport right now, flying to Phoenix for that conference. Remember? I won't be back until Sunday. The genuine anguish in her voice only made me feel worse. Use my emergency key. It's still under the planter. Stay as long as you need. A flicker of relief washed over me until I remembered, your apartment flooded last week. You're staying with your sister until the repairs are done. Right, I completely forgot. God, I'm so sorry, Kate. I tried 3 more friends with similar results. One was out of town, another was staying with her boyfriend in a tiny studio, and the third had family visiting from out of state. By my 5th call, the rejection started feeling personal, even though logically, I knew it wasn't. With nowhere else to go, I began walking toward downtown, my suitcase rattling loudly over every crack in the sidewalk. The rain intensified, seeping into my shoes and chilling me to the bone. Cars passed, splashing dirty water onto my jeans. I must have looked pathetic, a 28-year-old woman dragging a suitcase through the rain, mascara running down her face. After 40 minutes of walking, I reached the Pinewood Motel, a place I'd passed 1,000 times but never imagined staying in. Its neon sign buzzed and flickered, but the vacancy light promised shelter at least. The lobby smelled of cigarettes and pine air freshener. Behind the counter stood an older woman with kind eyes and grey hair pulled into a messy bun. Her name tag read Rebecca, rough day, sweetheart. She asked, eyeing my drenched clothes and tear-stained face. You could say that, I managed. How much for a room, just for tonight? $69 plus tax, she replied. Checkout's at 11 tomorrow. I counted out $75, mentally calculating how little that left me. Rebecca handed me a key attached to a plastic number 4. Continental breakfast starts at 6, she added with a gentle smile. Nothing fancy, but the coffee is decent. The room was exactly what you'd expect from a budget motel. Faded floral bedspread, ancient television, bathroom with cracked tiles. But it was clean and dry, and at that moment, it looked like paradise. I peeled off my wet clothes and took a hot shower, letting the water mix with my tears. In the privacy of the steamy bathroom, I finally allowed myself to break down completely, sliding down the tile wall to sit under the spray, hugging my knees to my chest, sobbing until my throat hurt. Through the thin walls, I could hear Rebecca arguing with someone. We need to pay the electric bill first, Donald. The credit card company can wait another week. They'll shut off the power. Becky, then we'll have no guests at all. Their financial struggles oddly comforted me. At least, I wasn't the only one treading water. Later, wrapped in a scratchy motel towel, I sat on the bed and assessed my situation. My savings account held exactly $2,318, the result of countless week and craft fairs and online sales. My jewelry supplies, at least the ones I'd managed to bring, were worth maybe another $1,000 if I sold them, which would defeat the whole purpose of starting my business. I opened my laptop and checked my email, hoping for a miracle. There was a message from the apartment manager. Looking forward to showing you the studio tomorrow at 3 p.m. a place I could no longer afford to rent. On a blank page in my notebook, I made a list. 1. Find temporary housing. 2. Get a job that pays cash immediately. 3. Build up savings. 4. Restart jewelry business when stable. Each item felt like admitting defeat, especially the last one. My dream deferred indefinitely. Exhausted and emotionally drained, I crawled under the covers of the motel bed. My last thought before falling asleep was that Grandma Margaret would be so disappointed to see me give up. "I'm not giving up," I whispered to her memory. "I'm just regrouping." Outside, the rain continued to fall, washing away the life I'd known and clearing space for whatever would come next. The hosh beep of my phone alarm jolted me awake at 7:30. For a disorienting moment, I forgot where I was. The unfamiliar ceiling, the sound of cars on the nearby highway, the scratchy sheets all felt wrong. Then reality crashed back like a wave. I was in a motel room because my parents had thrown me out. I reached for my phone to silence the alarm and noticed several notifications. Probably Amber checking in, I thought. Or maybe, just maybe, my parents had cooled down and wanted to talk. A tiny, childish part of me still hoped they'd realized they'd overreacted. But the notification that caught my eye wasn't from any of them. It was from the lottery app I tried to check last night. My heart skipped as I read the words, "Congratulations." "You've won." "Yeah, right," I muttered, assuming it was one of those notifications designed to get you to open the app, probably a $2 win or something. But when I tapped on it, the screen that loaded made me sit bolt upright. Winning numbers: 08, 17, 23, 42, 54, 09. Those were Grandma Margaret's numbers, the ones from her special book, the ones I played every single week without fail. My hands trembled as I opened my purse and pulled out the physical ticket to compare. They matched, every single number matched. My brain refused to process what my eyes were seeing. This had to be a mistake. I closed the app and reopened it, same result. I googled Powerball winning numbers and found the official lottery website. Same numbers, the prize amount made me choke, $94 million jackpot. The lump sum option, after taxes, would be around $37 million. "This can't be real," I whispered to the empty room. "Things like this don't happen to people like me." With shaking fingers, I called the number listed on the lottery website. After several rings, a professional-sounding woman answered. "State Lottery Commission, how may I help you?" I think I won," I stammered, "but I need to make sure it's not a mistake." The woman asked for the numbers and then my ticket's barcode. There was a pause that felt like eternity. "Miss Anderson," her voice changed, becoming more formal. "I can verify that you are indeed holding a winning ticket for last night's drawing. Congratulations." I couldn't breathe. The room started spinning, and I had to put my head between my knees. "Are you all right, ma'am?" the lottery woman asked. "Yes, no, I don't know," I gasped. "What do I do now?" She explained the claim process, advised me to sign the back of the ticket immediately, and recommended I consult with a financial advisor and attorney before making any decisions. I scribbled notes frantically, certain I would forget everything the moment we hung up. When the call ended, I sat frozen on the edge of the bed. $37 million. Yesterday, I had been agonizing over a $69 motel room. Today, I could buy the entire motel and every building on the block. A hysterical laugh bubbled up from my chest, then another. Soon, I was cackling so loudly that I heard a knock at my door. "Everything okay in there, honey?" It was Rebecca, the motel owner. I opened the door, still in my rumpled clothes from yesterday, hair a wild mess, eyes wide, and face flushed. "I won," I whispered, Rebecca's brow furrowed with concern. "Won what, dear?" "The lottery. I won the lottery last night." "All of it?" The words tumbled out incoherently. Her expression shifted from concern to disbelief. "The Powerball, that big jackpot." I nodded, then pulled her inside and closed the door. "I can't tell anyone yet. I need to figure out what to do." Rebecca guided me to sit on the bed, like I was made of glass. "Take deep breaths, sweetheart. This is a lot to process. Yesterday, I was homeless," I said, the reality of my situation finally sinking in. My parents kicked me out because they thought my jewelry business was a waste of time. And now ... now you're a millionaire. Rebecca finished, her voice filled with wonder. The numbers were my grandmother's, I told her, tears welling up. She died last year. We always played the lottery together. She left me her book of special numbers. Rebecca squeezed my hand. Sounds like she's still looking out for you. That simple statement broke something inside me. I began sobbing uncontrollably, all the stress and pain, and now this overwhelming shock pouring out at once. Rebecca patted my back awkwardly, murmuring soothing words. When I finally calmed down, a strange clarity settled over me. I knew exactly what I needed to do. I need a lawyer and a financial advisor, I said, wiping my eyes, and I need to keep this quiet until everything's set up properly. Rebecca nodded approvingly. Smart girl, my cousin James is a financial advisor in the city, very discreet. I could give him a call if you'd like. Yes, please, I said gratefully. And can I stay here a few more nights until I figure things out? Of course, honey. I'll put you in our best room, on the house. I shook my head firmly. No, I'll pay. In fact, an idea formed, fueled by the snippets of conversation I'd overheard last night. Rebecca, how much would it cost to book every room in this motel for a week? Her eyes widened, all 15 rooms. That would be about $6,000. But why would you want to do that? Consider it insurance for my privacy. Plus, it sounds like it might help with those bills I heard you discussing with Donald. Rebecca blushed. You heard that? I'm so sorry, don't be. I understand financial struggles better than most people. I thought about my parents, who would soon learn about my windfall. A complicated mix of emotions swirled within me: vindication, anger, hurt, and underneath it all, a tiny flicker of the desire for reconciliation. But first, I needed to secure my future, to become the woman Grandma Margaret always believed I could be. One more thing, I told Rebecca as she turned to leave. If anyone comes looking for me, especially a couple in their 50s or a young man who looks like me, I'm not here, understand? She nodded, a conspiratorial smile crossing her face. I understand completely. Your secret's safe with me. When she left, I sat back on the bed, staring at the lottery app still open on my phone. $37 million. The exact amount I'd need to never depend on anyone ever again. Grandma Margaret's voice seemed to whisper in my ear. See, darling, magic happens when you stay true to yourself. For the first time since leaving my parents' house, I smiled, a real smile that reached my eyes and warmed my heart. The universe had given me not just a second chance, but a cosmic do-over. By dawn, I had been kicked out with nothing but a suitcase. Now, I was rich beyond my wildest dreams, and no one who had doubted me knew it yet. 2 days later, I sat in the polished office of James Spencer, financial advisor and, conveniently, Rebecca's cousin. True to her word, he was professional and discreet, not batting an eye when I arrived in the same clothes I'd been wearing since Tuesday. The first step is securing your winnings, James explained, sliding a folder across his mahogany desk. I've prepared the paperwork for a blind trust. This will allow you to claim the prize without your name becoming public. Is that legal? I asked, scanning the documents. Absolutely. Several states allow lottery winners to remain anonymous through trusts. It's the smart play, especially for someone in your unique situation. My unique situation, what a diplomatic way of saying homeless overnight millionaire. Together, we crafted a financial plan that included immediate, short-term, and long-term goals. I would take the lump sum option, invest 60% in a diversified portfolio, set aside money for taxes, and keep a reasonable amount liquid for immediate needs. How reasonable is reasonable? I asked. James smiled. For someone with $37 million, a few $100,000 is perfectly reasonable for getting established. The words "a few $100,000" made me dizzy. 2 days ago, I was counting quarters for vending machine coffee. After signing what felt like 1,000 documents, I had one special request. There's a motel, the Pinewood, where I've been staying. The owners, Rebecca and Donald, are struggling financially. I'd like to anonymously pay off their mortgage. James didn't seem surprised, a worthy first act of generosity. I'll arrange it through the trust, so it can't be traced back to you. That afternoon, with James's help, I found a modest but beautiful apartment in an upscale building downtown. The real estate agent's eyes widened when I offered to pay the full year's lease in advance in cash. By evening, I had the keys to my new home. My first purchases were practical: new clothes, toiletries, basic furniture, and a high-quality laptop. I avoided extravagance, still unable to fully grasp that I could afford anything I wanted. The only exception was a top-of-the-line set of jewelry-making tools and premium materials, delivered discreetly to my new address. A week after winning, I had yet to tell anyone about my windfall except Rebecca, Donald, and my financial team. I still needed time to process everything, to decide how to handle my family, and to ensure my new wealth was properly secured. Then came the inevitable encounter I'd been both dreading and secretly anticipating. I was at Carlton's Coffee, ordering my usual latte, when a familiar voice called my name. "Caitlin, is that you?" I turned to see my brother, Timothy, standing there, coffee cup in hand, looking surprised and slightly uncomfortable. "Timothy," I acknowledged coolly. "I've been trying to reach you," he said, shifting awkwardly. "You changed your number. I got a new phone plan," I replied, which was true. "What do you want? Mom and Dad are worried. They expected you to come back after cooling off for a day or two." I couldn't help but laugh. "They kicked me out with nowhere to go in the rain. What made them think I'd come crawling back?" Timothy had the decency to look ashamed. "They may have overreacted. We all did, I don't recall you standing up for me. Look, can we sit and talk? You look different." His eyes took in my new designer blouse and the expensive watch on my wrist. Gifts to myself, I justified as professional necessities. "I am different," I said simply. We sat at a corner table, Timothy clearly burning with questions about my apparent prosperity. I offered no explanations, letting him squirm. "So, where are you staying?" he finally asked. "I have a place," I said vaguely, "and a plan." "The jewelry thing, among other things," Timothy leaned forward. "Listen, Kate, Mom's been a mess. Dad's pretending he's not worried, but he is. Maybe if you called them, apologized for the blow apologized." I set my cup down with a sharp clink. "I'm not the one who should be apologizing, Timothy. They were trying to help you make good decisions. No, they were trying to force me to live the life they wanted for me." "There's a difference," Timothy sighed. "I just want our family back together." For a moment, I felt a pang of sympathy. Timothy had always been the peacemaker, desperate for harmony at any cost. But I wasn't willing to pay that cost anymore. Our family isn't together because of choices they made, not me. I'm doing fine on my own. "Better than fine, actually, clearly," he said, gesturing to my expensive attire. "Did you get a new job or something?" "Or something," I replied with a small smile. "Give Mom and Dad my regards. Tell them I'm not coming back, but I am moving forward." As I walked away, I felt lighter than I had in years. The tables had turned so dramatically, it was almost comical. I wondered how long it would take for word to spread. Not long, as it turned out. That evening, my phone, with a new number I'd given only to Timothy, buzzed with texts from both parents. From Dad, "Timothy says you're doing well. We should talk." From Mom, "Please call us, sweetheart. We miss you." I didn't respond to either message. Instead, I focused on setting up my new jewelry studio in the second bedroom of my apartment. With proper equipment and materials, I could finally create the pieces I'd always envisioned. 2 weeks after winning, I launched my rebranded jewelry business, Margaret's Legacy, named for my grandmother. I hired a professional photographer and web designer to create a stunning online presence. Within days, orders started coming in, including one from a minor celebrity who had somehow discovered my work on Instagram. The same day my first major sale went through, I received a call from an unknown number. "Caitlin, it's Sophia Martinez. Your mother gave me your number." Dr. Martinez had been my therapist briefly during college. I'd stopped seeing her when my parents, who were paying for the sessions, insisted they be informed about what we discussed. "How did my mother get this number?" I asked. annoyed at the invasion of privacy from your brother, I believe. Listen, I'm not calling in any professional capacity. Your mother is genuinely concerned. There are rumors around town that you've come into some money, and she's worried you might be involved in something problematic. I nearly choked on my tea. She thinks I'm dealing drugs or something. She didn't say that exactly, but she's confused about your sudden change in circumstances. I considered my options. Sophia had always been kind and respectful, even when I stopped therapy. I assure you my financial situation is completely legal and legitimate, but I appreciate the concern. Would you be open to a session? She asked, just to talk through how you want to handle things with your family going forward. My treat. The offer was tempting. I did need someone objective to help me navigate the complicated emotions I was feeling. One session, I agreed, but I'll pay for myself. I can afford it now. Our meeting proved invaluable. Sophia helped me articulate what I wanted from my relationship with my parents moving forward: respect for my choices, acknowledgement of their hurtful actions, and clear boundaries around my independence. You don't owe them an explanation about your money, Sophia advised, but if you want any kind of relationship going forward, some version of the truth will eventually be necessary. She was right, of course. The question was I ready to face them yet? The answer came sooner than expected. 3 weeks after being kicked out, I returned to my apartment building to find my parents waiting in the lobby. My mother rushed forward when she saw me. "Caitlin, thank God, we've been so worried." My father stood awkwardly behind her, taking in my appearance, the expensive building, the doorman who had nodded respectfully as I entered. "How did you find me?" I asked calmly. "Timothy followed you home yesterday," Mum admitted. "We were desperate to make sure you were okay. As you can see, I'm fine." I gestured to the marble lobby. "More than fine, actually," Dad finally spoke. "Caitlin, what's going on? How can you afford to live here?" I looked at both of them, these people who had raised me, loved me in their way, and then discarded me when I didn't fit their mold. Part of me wanted to tell them everything, watch their faces as they realized what they'd done. Another part wanted to maintain my privacy, my power. "Would you like to come up?" I offered, making a decision. "We have a lot to talk about." My parents stood speechless in the center of my new apartment, taking in the high ceilings, the view of the city, the expensive furniture I'd finally allowed myself to buy after weeks of living like I was still broke. "This place must cost a fortune," Dad finally said, his accountant's mind clearly calculating figures. $3,000 a month, I confirmed. I paid a year in advance. Mom touched the sleeve of my cashmere sweater. "And these clothes, Caitlin, please tell us what's going on. Are you in some kind of trouble?" I gestured for them to sit on the plush sofa while I took the armchair opposite, power positions, just as Sophia and I had discussed. 3 weeks ago, you kicked me out of the house with nowhere to go," I began calmly. "That same night, something else happened. I pulled out the lottery ticket I still kept in my wallet, now laminated for protection, even though the money was long since claimed. I handed it to my father. "What's this?" he asked, squinting at the numbers. "Grandma Margaret's special numbers," I said. "The ones we played every week together, the ones in the book she left me when she died." Mom's hand flew to her mouth as understanding dawned. "The Powerball, the big one from last month. You won $37 million after taxes," I confirmed, "the exact night you decided I wasn't worth supporting anymore." Dad's face went through a remarkable series of transformations: disbelief, shock, calculation, and finally, an attempt at fatherly pride that made my stomach turn. "My God, Caitlin, this is incredible," he said, reaching for my hand. I pulled away. "Is it? Because 3 weeks ago, you called my dreams a fantasy and my work trinkets. You invaded my privacy, read my diary, and physically pushed me out the door with one suitcase. We were trying to help you," Mom insisted, tears forming in her eyes. "We wanted you to stand on your own feet. And now I am," I replied, "just not in the way you planned." "Sweetheart, we're so sorry about how things happened," Dad said, his voice taking on the conciliatory tone he used when trying to land a difficult client. "We never meant for you to actually be homeless. We thought you'd stay with Amber or come back after a day or two. So your plan was to scare me straight, terrify me into conformity. I stood up, anger rising despite my resolve to stay calm. Do you have any idea what that night was like for me? Standing in the rain, calling friends who couldn't help, ending up in a motel because I had nowhere else to go. Mom was openly crying now. We made a terrible mistake. We've been sick with worrying, not sick enough to actually look for me until Timothy reported I seemed to be doing well. I pointed out. Not sick enough to apologize until you found out I'm rich. That's not fair, Dad protested. We tried calling after a week, and only to ask me to apologize to you. A heavy silence fell over the room. Finally, Dad spoke again, his voice subdued. What do you want from us now, Caitlin? It was the first honest question he'd asked. I sat back down, collecting my thoughts. I want acknowledgement that what you did was wrong, not just a mistake, but fundamentally wrong. I want respect for my choices and my independence. And I want it clear that my money is mine alone. Of course it's yours, Mom said quickly. We would never ... You already asked how much my apartment costs and eyeballed my sweater, I interrupted. So forgive me if I'm skeptical. Another silence, longer this time. We're very proud of you, Dad finally offered, though whether for winning the lottery or standing up to them wasn't clear. I'd like to believe that, I said, but I'm not sure you know me well enough to be proud of me, the real me, not the daughter you tried to shape into your image. I stood up again, signaling the end of our conversation. I'll be hosting a family dinner next Saturday. Timothy is invited too. We can talk more then if you're willing to start fresh with me as I am now. They left in a daze, clearly struggling to process everything. As the door closed behind them, I exhaled a breath I felt like I'd been holding for years. Over the next month, things shifted gradually. The family dinner was awkward but civil. Timothy was the most genuinely happy for me, though even he couldn't resist asking about investment opportunities. Mum brought my childhood photo albums as a peace offering. Dad tried, in his stilted way, to express interest in my jewelry business, though his questions always circled back to profit margins and tax implications. With my newfound financial freedom, I established the Margaret Wilson Foundation, named after my grandmother. Its mission was to provide grants to young artists and entrepreneurs who lack family support. Rebecca and Donald from the Pinewood Motel were shocked to receive a letter informing them their mortgage had been paid in full by an anonymous donor, though Rebecca gave me a knowing wink when I stopped by to officially share my good news with them. My jewelry business flourished once I could afford proper marketing and materials. I rented a small storefront downtown and hired two assistants, both young artists struggling to make ends meet while pursuing their passions. 4 months after winning, I met Michael at a charity auction I was hosting for the foundation. He bid on one of my pieces without knowing I was the artist, and we struck up a conversation about design. 3 dates later, I finally told him about my lottery win, braced for his reaction to change. That explains the fancy restaurant choices, was all he said with a laugh. But I still prefer that taco truck you took me to on our first date. His nonchalance was refreshing after months of people treating me differently once they knew about my money. The true test came at Thanksgiving, the first holiday since the fallout. I hosted at my apartment, now fully furnished and feeling like home. Mum brought her famous apple pie. Dad managed to go the entire meal without mentioning investments or tax brackets. Timothy brought his new girlfriend, a painter he'd met through my foundation, ironically enough. As we ate, I caught Mum looking at me with an expression I hadn't seen before, not pride exactly, but something like respect. Dad actually asked about my latest jewelry collection without immediately questioning its profitability, small steps, but meaningful ones. After dinner, Mum helped me with the dishes, an oddly normal mother-daughter moment amid our extraordinary circumstances. Your grandmother would be so proud of you, she said softly, handing me a plate to dry. Not because of the money, but because of what you're doing with it, because you stayed true to yourself. I know, I replied, surprised to find tears in my eyes. I feel her with me sometimes. Mum hesitated, then added, I'm sorry we couldn't see it before, what you were trying to build, who you really are. It wasn't a complete apology, but it was a start. a foundation we could potentially build upon, like the careful layering of stones in one of my more intricate necklaces. Later, as everyone was leaving, Dad awkwardly pulled me aside. "That necklace your mother was wearing, the one with the blue stones, you made that?" "Yes," I confirmed. "It's called Ocean Memory." "The stones are lapis lazuli," he nodded thoughtfully. "It's beautiful, truly beautiful, Caitlin." I never really looked before. In that small admission lay decades of inattention, of missed opportunities to connect, but also, perhaps, an opening for something new. "Thanks, Dad," I said. "Maybe next time I'll show you my studio." "I'd like that," he replied, and for once, I believed him. As I closed the door behind my family, I felt a sense of peace I hadn't expected. The money hadn't fixed everything, hadn't magically healed old wounds or created perfect relationships, but it had given me the freedom to set boundaries, to engage on my own terms, and to build the life I'd always wanted. Grandma Margaret's numbers hadn't just made me rich. They'd given me the chance to become fully myself. 1 year after the night that changed everything, I stood in my jewelry gallery for the grand opening exhibition of Margaret's legacy, my first complete collection. The space buzzed with art critics, local media, clients, and friends. My parents stood awkwardly near the refreshment table, making small talk with Michael, who handled them with surprising grace. Looking around at what I'd built, I felt a deep sense of satisfaction. My work now sold in galleries across the country. The foundation had helped 27 young artists launch their careers. The Pinewood Motel had been renovated and rebranded as an artist retreat, with Rebecca and Donald still managing it, but now as partners rather than struggling owners. The money had changed my life, certainly, but not in the ways people might expect. The true value wasn't in the expensive apartment or designer clothes, though I enjoyed those things. The real gift was freedom from financial worrying, yes, but more importantly, freedom from others' expectations and definitions of success. I no longer had to convince anyone that my dreams were valid. I didn't need my parents' approval or understanding, though our relationship had improved considerably once those needs were removed from the equation. Dad still occasionally slipped into offering unsolicited financial advice, but he caught himself, more often than not. Mum had started taking pottery classes, discovering her own creative side late in life. Timothy had become an unexpected ally, using his business background to help with the foundation. His girlfriend, Lisa, the painter, had introduced him to a world beyond spreadsheets and corporate ladders. Sometimes, I caught him looking at me with something like envy, not for my money, but for the certainty I had about my path. As I circulated through the gallery, accepting congratulations and discussing my work, I spotted Amber across the room, chatting animatedly with a young woman wearing one of my signature necklaces. The proverbial overnight success, Amber teased when I joined them, only took you 10 years of working your butt off, plus a miracle lottery win. The money helped, I admitted. But it wouldn't have mattered if I hadn't already known exactly what I wanted to create. "Speaking of creating," Amber said, "have you seen the article in Modern Artisan? They're calling you the pioneer of the new handcrafted luxury movement." I laughed. Pretty fancy title for a girl who started making jewelry from buttons and broken necklaces. "Those were just your materials," a familiar voice said behind me. "Your vision was always something more." I turned to find my father standing there, looking slightly out of place in his suit among the artistic crowd, but making an effort nonetheless. "Thanks, Dad," I said, genuinely touched. "Your grandmother would be proud," he added, the phrase no longer feeling like an empty platitude, but a truth we both recognized. Later, after the last guest had left and I was alone in the gallery with Michael, I wandered among my creations, touching each piece gently, remembering the journey from concept to completion. "Penny for your thoughts," Michael said, wrapping his arms around me from behind. "I was just thinking about what would have happened if I'd never won the lottery," I replied. "If I'd never bought that ticket, or if I'd chosen different numbers, you'd still be making beautiful things," he said confidently. "It might have taken longer, but you'd be here eventually." That's who you are. His faith in me, uncomplicated by history or expectation, was perhaps the greatest gift of this new chapter in my life. The truth was, the lottery hadn't created my success, it had merely accelerated it. The talent, the vision, the determination had always been there, waiting for the right conditions to flourish. Grandma Margaret had seen it all along. Sometimes, I wondered if she'd somehow known what would happen, if those numbers in her special book weren't just random digits, but a final gift, a way of saying, I believe in you when no one else does. The irony wasn't lost on me that my parents' rejection had coincided perfectly with my financial windfall. That the moment they decided I wasn't worth supporting was exactly when the universe decided I was worth millions. The symmetry was almost poetic, but the real poetry was in what came after, in the foundation that helped others like me, in the relationships rebuilt on healthier ground, in the business created entirely on my own terms, in the art that flowed from my hands now that financial stress no longer constrained my creativity. The day my parents kicked me out with nothing but a suitcase was the day I lost everything and gained everything at once. By dawn, I was rich, not just in money, but in possibility. If you're watching this and feeling stuck in someone else's version of your life, remember that sometimes losing everything is the path to finding what truly matters. Your winning lottery ticket might not be actual millions, but it might be the courage to finally walk your own path. What would you do if you suddenly had the freedom to be completely yourself? Drop a comment below and let me know. And if this story resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who might need to hear it. Thanks for staying with me to the end of this journey. Remember, the greatest wealth is living authentically on your own terms. We dung. Mom helped me with the dishes. An oddly normal mother-daughter moment amid our extraordinary circumstances. Your grandmother would be so proud of you, she said softly, handing me a plate to dry, not because of the money, but because of what you're doing with it, because you stayed true to yourself. I know, I replied, surprised to find tears in my eyes.